Hey guys, welcome back to part 3 of our series, me digitally inking this illustration of the Water Weirdo, an RPG monster for Mystic Punks. Yeah, this is the conclusion, so you get to see the final drawing at the end of the video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, and if you like the channel, please subscribe, and you'll get more content like this, hearing me talk about my art processes over some of these videos of me doing art. Right now in the image, we're getting pretty close to the final iteration of the creature. I'm just putting sort of finishing touches here, just trying to figure out, again, the real challenge here is trying to figure out how this harsh reflected light on the left-hand side of the creature is going to look in relation to like that deep shadow running down the middle. And so I want to give it more shadow because I feel like the light wouldn't reach as far around the figure as I have it right now. So, and I want the shadow to kind of be really overpowering and present in the front of the creature because I don't know, it's kind of a horrific sight. It's a horrific creature, so I want it to have this kind of horror sensibility. And I'm just really partial to horror comics and horror comics art in general. It's funny, I really am a huge fan of EC comics, but I haven't read a ton of EC comics. It's kind of ironic. So yeah, I'm just trying to get like the texture on the leaves, just using the stiff nib pen from Frendon in Clip Studio Paint. I'm just like, doing these little brushy marks, kind of like deeper on the underbelly of the fold and then a little bit lighter on the top. I want it to look like it has a little bit of a sheen. It could be, the creature's supposed to be wet from climbing out of this abandoned public pool, which maybe is its lair, but I don't know if I'm really achieving that kind of effect. I'm just not sweating it too much and just keep going. I know I have it to at least fill in like all these things. Maybe I'll come back to it later to try and figure out how I can give that kind of wet look to it. So yeah, I'm just sort of like, playing with the shadow, trying to assess like, is it enough shadow? Is it too much highlight? That's what I'm sort of feeling. I want to find that balance. But I want the balance to be more shadow than highlight. And it's not really feeling like too much. I do think that the cloak of seaweed is working. So I'm just drawing some cast shadow because that lifeguard chair is closer to the background light. It's got more of a cast shadow. Whereas for the creature in the foreground, most of the light is hitting it coming in from the right-hand side and striking it. A lot of people really don't like to draw feet. Cartoonists sometimes get accused of not drawing feet enough. I really like to draw feet because I had a friend in art school he always had really, really great feet, in his figure drawing, and I kind of asked him about it. And he told me they just really like to have really solid sort of foundation for the figure. Like the feet were just sort of like these foundational pillars for the structure of the body to stand upon. That always kind of resonated with me, so I continue. I feel like that I've adopted that sort of same mentality. And I'm putting in some more shadows. I'm sort of imagining the light striking these seaweed leaves and how they kind of interact with each other. If light was striking them, like what kind of cast shadows they would be making on the other leaves behind them. This is all just sort of impressionistic inking, just from my imagination, just sort of like thinking about what these sort of things would kind of look like. I want to show some kind of leaves of seaweed, kind of maybe they're not as long or weighted down, as the others. So maybe they kind of spring out from the neck a little bit, like they're growing a little bit more. Yeah, I really love putting shadows on feet, I gotta say. Especially these sort of like gnarled feet. It's pretty fun. And I really want it to look like it's kind of taking that weird sort of step where it just sort of slides its toes across the pool deck. And maybe it picks up a little bit of water as it's doing so. And I'm trying to figure out if I can sell it, with the water being pulled up like this. But I don't think it's really working. I know that I completely erase this thing. Yeah, there it goes. So yeah, I just sort of like give it a little bit of a suggestion. It's too much. And if I did it the other way, the water would look like, it wouldn't look like water anymore. It would just sort of look like some sort of, molasses or some sort of viscous fluid or whatever. Yeah, with comic book inking, I always feel like you're always just rendering how light hits surfaces. So this is, and so it's a language. And so this is like the language of light hitting water. And these are the sort of like the symbols that you create. So just like these vertical slashes, and then, these ripples, that cut through those slashes that are meant to be like the shadow form within a puddle of water. It also works for like steel or chrome floors, like Death Star type floors, like Jim Steranko Hydra floors or something. I'm going back in here now, and I'm realizing that the lines that I had put down for the tiles in the pool are completely gone now. So usually there's some remnant of them when you do a fill, but there is nothing there. So I'm kind of redoing the tiles a little bit. Like I said in the first video, I really like to have some kind of pattern in the background continuing across behind the foreground figure. I think it gives a bit of a sense of depth. I'm just sort of like fading out the shadow there on the sides using the same pen tool, but just as an eraser. So this sort of grid of tiles behind the creature, I feel like it just pushes the foreground figure off the background a bit, and the image doesn't look very flat anymore. So now I'm going in here with and just adding shadow to the lifeguard chair here. I can't remember if I go back and do a little bit of the background spokes. I guess not. And then here I'm just adding some detail to like the foliage in the background. This also serves as kind of like a continuing pattern behind the creature in the foreground. And yeah, again, it helps kind of push the foreground figure forward, and the image doesn't feel so flat, And I was thinking about putting some kind of fence there. And yeah, I go in here and I'm just like seeing if I can do some kind of chain link fence pattern. I don't like it at all. So then I just decided maybe there's just like kind of like a wall here, but like some of like the foliage is creeping over the wall. That kind of makes sense to me. So I go with that. Yeah, I just want to pull out maybe some reflected light is sort of hitting these deep seaweed leaves coming in from the primary light source, and then add a little bit of detail to like to this dripping. Maybe I can make it work. I'm kind of realizing that the shapes of the seaweed are just so intricate, and detailed, that if I try to add some kind of like water droplets to the seaweed forms, it's like really not going to read at all. You're just not going to be able to see these droplets. It's just going to get lost in this seaweed pattern. I think I attempted a little bit right here, but then I kind of quickly realized that it's kind of like not worth the effort. So it's better off if I just have like these droplets sort of like being flung off of it. And of course, a little bit of weird sort of like creature drool. You want to make them, never have them like the same length at all. Just make sure that they're all kind of different. There we go. You can never have too much, I guess. Yeah, and that one I really wanted it to look like it's just to like accent the kind of like form of like the mouth barrel, and going over like the chin, the receding chin. Still playing with some of like the shadows here, and taking a quick assessment of everything. And so this is a technique I like to do when I'm doing cross hatching in the background. So I'll put the cross hatching on a separate layer. This is another advantage of digital inking. You just don't have to worry too much when you're operating in layers. You can really do a lot of different things, without damaging the artwork or having to like really do a lot of crazy corrections or anything like that. It's just part of the nature of digital inking, which there's just a lot of advantages to it. I mean, I love traditional inking. I love working with a brush and a nib and everything like that. That nothing really beats that sensation of working on a piece of paper. But when I'm doing work like this, especially like work for clients, and paid gigs and stuff that really requires a deadline and needs, I don't know, like there's just not time for me to kind of like experiment and problem solve some things. So it's just easier for me to kind of use these techniques that I know I can leverage to my advantage for the sake of speed and for the sake of like the result. Plus it's really enjoyable. I really like working on the iPad a lot. So what I do is I just make the crosshatch layer 50% opacity, and then I'm able to kind of see it separate from the foreground layer image, and then go back to 100% opacity. So yeah, it's just really, really helpful. And then I'm putting the light source here, like this spotlight or street lamp or something like that in the background. I always really love doing this. I just think it's got just like a comic book shortcut that is just so effective. I don't know, I really dig it. I like it so much that I decided that I'm gonna like put one on the other side as well. So I just copy it, drag it over, flip it. Yeah, it's like a slightly different height. So anyway, so this is also a great thing about Clip Studio. You can just add these screen tones, these dot screens. It's built right into the program. I know Photoshop has it too, but there's a little bit more flexibility with what you're able to do with it in Clip Studio. You can customize how you want the dot screen to behave. This also really helps to create these mid-tones that make the highlights really stand out. I'm always amazed at kind of like the effect that screen tones have. That it's just so effective in many ways at, helping to kind of create even more dimension and rendering to like the form. It's just a black and white drawing. It just makes it so much easier. It just gives it so much atmosphere and mood. And it also just gives it like that kind of like 1950s horror vibe that I really love. So I'm just sort of like jumping around the figure, jumping around the image, figuring out what is a mid-tone, what could use a mid-tone effect. And it's looking pretty good. Getting close to being finished here. I'm just like sort of scanning here now. Signing it, pretty much done. I sign it when I'm pretty much close to being done. But yeah, I went back here and I did another like pass here because I felt like the barnacles on the top of the head were kind of like getting lost with like the texture of the cross-hatching in the background. So I wanted to give it a little bit more of a black like halo surrounding the top of the head. And then that requires a little bit more cross-hatching just to kind of blend everything out a little bit and just expand that black shadow for the sky a little bit further. I mean, this is just a really fun piece to work on. I'm doing 15 of these images for this adventure, and started with this one in the sketches, and I was excited. So I started with this one as my first piece for the final. Here's the final image. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with how this one turned out for what it is. I think adopting sort of this mindset of it being a EC-inspired inking style really helped me. Just having that idea of like a Wally Wood kind of deep shadow effect. It was really fun to do. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you like the video, and we'll hit the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for more videos like this.